The three boards of the Appraisal Foundation are central to our congressionally authorized work to maintain standards and minimum qualifications for appraisers in the United States. Serving on one of these boards, the Board of Trustees, the Appraisal Standards Board, and the Appraiser Qualifications Board, is an important way to serve both the public and the appraisal profession. Every year, all three boards open new applications for open seats. The number of open seats each year on a given board can vary, and it is important to check the application fact sheet that accompanies the application to learn more about how many seats are open, and if applying for the Board of Trustees, to see how many seats are available in the public interest or partner categories. In 2023, the Board of Trustees instituted a new governance structure that reorganized the composition of the Board of Trustees. On the board, 9 to 10 of the trustee seats are for individuals who have been nominated by one of the Foundation's partner organizations, and 9 to 11 trustee seats are for public interest representatives. Each of these groups have identical vetting processes, which we will outline in a moment. In addition to this change in composition, the Board of Trustees instituted a system of targets to ensure long-term equal representation of stakeholders across the appraisal profession. Each year, the Trustee Nominating Committee reviews the current composition of the Board of Trustees to identify areas where representation may be lacking. These areas become targets, not mandates, of specialized outreach through the application process. You can find this year's targets on the application fact sheet and announcement. In addition, the nominating committees utilize blind scoring and a rubric-driven process to ensure the strongest candidates continue to advance through the process. The rest of this video will cover the application process, and you'll hear from some current board members who have gone through the process themselves and then give their insights about the process. Thank you for considering applying for one of the Appraisal Foundation's boards. Let's start with the application cycle for all three boards. Every January, the Board of Trustees opens applications for any trustee seats available. This application process then runs through the spring Board of Trustees meeting when new trustees are appointed. In the summer, usually June or July, the call for applicants goes out for any open seats on the Appraisal Standards Board and Appraiser Qualifications Board. That application process runs through the fall Board of Trustees meeting when new members are named. Before we discuss each step of the application process, let's hear from Board of Trustee member Bilal Sharif on what he thinks is important to know about the application process going in. Hi Bilal, what do you wish you had known about the application process before going through it?
What I wish I had known about the application process to become a Board of Trustee member for the Appraisal Foundation before going through it was just that the process and interviews would be less about the history and the inner working of the Appraisal Foundation and more about the impact and contributions that I could bring to the foundation moving forward. You know, as I mentioned, less about it being founded in 1987, but what exactly is USPAP, the AQB, ASB, TAFAC, or CARE, and more about my leadership experiences, times in which I've overcome adversity, mistakes I've made, what I would do differently, what I uniquely bring to the table, and where we're headed in the future as a foundation. With that being said, I'm honored and grateful to be able to serve with such a dynamic group of distinguished individuals, and I look forward to the collective impact that we will make moving forward as a Board of Trustees for the Appraisal Foundation. Thank you.
Application announcements are posted on the Foundation's website and social media channels and broadcast through an email blast as well as a press release. These announcements contain important information, including how many seats are open, a candidate fact sheet, and important deadlines. The application itself asks for education, work experience, and relevant board experience. There will also be questions about your interest in serving on the board. If you apply for the Appraisal Standards Board or Appraiser Qualifications Board, there will also be questions that test your knowledge of the standards or qualification criteria, as a deep understanding of these is required for serving on one of those two boards. It is important that in filling out your application that you spend time making sure everything is completely filled out and that all questions have been thoroughly answered. The trustees who review those applications do so blindly, meaning that all names and personal identifying information is removed from the application, and reviewers are focused on the substance of the application itself, not who submitted it. After submitting an application and blind scoring is completed, all those who move on to the next round of the process will receive written questions and participate in a Zoom interview. The written questions ask candidates more complex questions about their desire to serve on their selected board. Again, if you are applying to the Appraisal Standards Board and Appraiser Qualifications Board, these will also include knowledge questions regarding the standards or qualification criteria, so please be prepared to answer those. These written questions will be blindly scored as well, so please make sure to answer all questions completely and thoughtfully. The Zoom interview will be held with one or two trustees, but will be recorded so other trustees can review all of the interviews. Interviews are about 20 minutes in length and will give the candidate an opportunity to ask questions of the trustees regarding service on the boards. Here's Heather Sullivan with her advice on the Zoom interview. Hi, Heather. What advice would you give to candidates who are about to go through their first interview?
When preparing for your first interview, the most important thing is to be ready and feel confident. First, know the interview will be conducted through Zoom, and you'll likely be speaking with one or two members of the Foundation's Board of Trustees. It will be recorded and shared with the full board, so it's a chance to make a good impression. Expect to discuss your education, professional background, and any relevant board experience you may have. They'll want to understand your interest in serving on the board and why you're passionate about the Foundation's mission. Be prepared to answer questions around appraisal standards and qualifications, as they'll also want to assess your knowledge in these areas. This interview is an opportunity for trustees to get to know you better as a person. Feel free to share experiences or skills that make you unique. Something that shows why you'd be a valuable addition to the board. This is really your time to stand out. At the end of the interview, you'll have a chance to ask questions. So don't hesitate to inquire about the Foundation's work, its future goals, or the next steps in the process. And remember, it's completely normal to feel a little nervous before the interview. It happens to everyone. I remember being nervous, but once the conversation started, I quickly became more comfortable. The key is preparation. Know why you want to serve, understand the Foundation's mission, and align your responses with that mission. When you do, you'll speak with authenticity and confidence. Ultimately, no matter the outcome, it's a great experience that will help you grow and prepare for future opportunities. Best of luck to you and enjoy this part of your journey.
After all Zoom interviews are completed, written questions are received, and trustees have had the opportunity to review and score, they will deliberate on who to invite to the final round of interviews. These interviews are held in person at the upcoming Board of Trustees meeting, so candidates will be notified of their selection in time to make travel arrangements. It's important to note the expense of travel for this interview will be covered by the Foundation. Attending this final interview in person is required, so when you apply, be sure to know when the Board of Trustees meeting is being held so you can be available if you are selected for a final interview. Final interviews for all boards are conducted in a public setting, so be prepared that your final interview will be done with the full committee of trustees who select new board members, along with a public audience that can be quite large. Please note that anyone who is undergoing a final interview cannot sit through the other candidate interviews until their interview is completed. Here's Miriam Lopez with her advice on the final public interview. Hi, Miriam. What was the public interview process like for you?
While speaking in public can be unsettling, the board and the nominating committee do a great job at putting you at ease. So in this public interview, you're seated at the table with the nominating committee, and it's a structured interview, and that you have the same set of questions for all candidates. And despite the fact that there are others in the audience, the interview still feels like an intimate conversation that allows you to showcase and communicate why you are the best candidate for the role. As with all interviews, preparation is really key. Knowing and understanding why you want to represent the foundation and the board, and knowing their mission, allows you to be able to answer their questions honestly, confidently, based on your knowledge and your experience. And regardless of the outcome, it's a great experience that prepares you for the next opportunity.
After public interviews have been completed, the trustees will deliberate and announce the candidates who have been appointed to the board at the public meeting the next day. A few things to note. It is very common for applicants to apply multiple times before being selected to join a board. Don't be discouraged if you aren't selected the first time you apply. Here's Anjanette Hudson talking about her experience reapplying to serve on the Appraisal Standards Board. Hi, AJ. What encouragement would you give to applicants to reapply if they don't make it on a board the first time?
Thank you for asking. Since my appointment, I have learned so much about how the boards are structured. Applicants may not understand the importance of a board that represents the appraisal industry's complex fabric. The board needs a balanced membership with representatives from many disciplines. This may be real property, business, or personal property valuation. Likewise, the practical experience of the board should be varied as well. Members need to reflect a wide variety of industry expertise, from the sole proprietor to someone with experience in review for a financial institution. I have also learned that each board member is appointed to a variable term length. Opportunities to join the board differ in a number of ways. I encourage applicants to continue applying each time an opening arrives. As your background and experience blends with the needs of future board vacancies, you may find your application successful. I also encourage applicants to stay active with the Appraisal Foundation. Be a frequent contributor to public meetings. Many of these meetings are now virtual and easily accessible for all. Actively participate in the outreach from AQB and ASB. We need your feedback not only to improve, but to ensure we consider the opinions of stakeholders. Listen to Appraiser Talk podcasts and increase your awareness of issues impacting both our industry and the work of the Appraisal Foundation. Finally, I'll add a bit of encouragement that working with the Appraisal Foundation is worth the wait. The foundation and its boards have an incredible commitment to excellence and service to appraisers. You'll be glad you kept at it.
As was said at the beginning of this video, service on one of our boards is an invaluable resource to the public and the appraisal profession. Thank you so much for considering giving your time and talent to our organization.